Hey, welcome back to Best Movies Recap. Today's movie takes us on an exciting and inspiring journey. Imagine being a high school underdog and suddenly becoming a basketball superstar overnight. Sounds unbelievable, right? Well, let's jump in and break down this incredible movie. The movie begins with a high school basketball game. The Eagles are losing badly, trailing far behind their opponents. The coach, desperate for a win, calls for a timeout. He instructs the players to pass the ball to Connor, the team captain and their best player, emphasizing that they must win this game. However, his words only discourage the rest of the team by making it clear that Connor is the only one he trusts to perform. Connor, already arrogant, starts acting superior to everyone, especially Brian. He treats Brian like an errand boy, throwing a towel at him and expecting him to pick it up. The coach also dismisses Brian, not even letting him sit on the bench as a substitute player. Brian is left feeling invisible and unimportant, even though he wears the same jersey as everyone else. That evening, we shift focus to Kevin, an NBA champion and Brian's idol. Kevin plays an incredible game, flawlessly leading his team to victory. Brian watches in awe, dreaming of playing like Kevin one day. Inspired, Brian heads outside to practice the moves he saw Kevin perform. Unfortunately, no matter how hard he tries, he fails miserably every single time. To make matters worse, Brian's younger sister secretly records his attempts, laughing at every failed move. When Brian falls and realizes she's filming, she runs away with the camera, leaving him embarrassed and frustrated. After Kevin's game, reporters and fans swarm him, desperate for interviews and autographs. One fan even asks him to sign their baby, but Kevin politely declines. Despite the chaos, Kevin remains composed, with his manager keeping the crowd at bay. The next day at school, Brian spots a new girl named Isabel. From the moment he sees her, he's smitten. During the lunch break, he gathers his courage and tries to approach her in the cafeteria. But before he can talk to her, Connor plays the video of Brian's failed basketball attempts on a screen in front of everyone. The video shows Brian hilariously falling into the hoop instead of making a shot, causing the entire cafeteria to burst into laughter. Humiliated, Brian quickly leaves without saying a word to Isabel. When he gets home, Brian sits in his room, feeling completely defeated. His father notices his son's low spirits and decides to cheer him up by surprising him with tickets to Kevin's game that evening. Overjoyed, Brian gets ready and heads to the game with his dad. The stadium is packed with fans wearing shirts featuring Kevin's picture. Brian, a massive fan himself, is thrilled to be there. As the game starts, Kevin's performance amazes the crowd. His speed, precision, and skill put his team far ahead in no time. Even the commentators can't stop praising him, highlighting how he improves with every match. During halftime, a special contest is announced. The announcer randomly selects a seat number, and the person in that seat gets a chance to take a three-point shot to win $200,000. As fate would have it, the selected seat belongs to Brian's father. Instead of taking the chance himself, Brian's father hands the ticket to Brian, insisting that he take the shot. Nervously, Brian steps onto the court. He lines up for the shot, but just as everyone expects, he misses. The ball bounces off the team mascot and rolls out of bounds. Embarrassed and defeated once again, Brian left the court feeling upset. As the players were entering the court for the second half, Kevin noticed Brian and spoke to him. Kevin advised him to keep practicing, explaining that talent alone wasn't enough to achieve success without continuous training. Kevin handed Brian the ball and told him to keep going. At that moment, Kevin wished he could transfer his talent to Brian to make him happy and successful. At that very moment, a strange thing happens. An electric charge passes from Kevin's hand to the ball and then to Brian's hand. Brian feels a jolt but doesn't think much of it. The next morning, Brian wakes up to surprising news. Kevin's team lost, and Kevin's performance in the second half was shockingly bad. What's even more surprising is that Brian now possesses extraordinary basketball skills. Moves that once seemed impossible come effortlessly to him, and he starts practicing non-stop. Meanwhile, Kevin struggles to understand his sudden loss of ability. His manager grows increasingly frustrated, warning him that his career is at risk. Kevin, however, has no explanation for his decline. That night, Brian goes to a local festival with his sister and best friend. While there, he sees Connor trying to win a stuffed animal for Isabel at a basketball game booth. Connor tries repeatedly to make the shot, but he fails every time, even after spending all his money. Brian, seeing an opportunity, teases Connor, which leads to a challenge. Connor dares Brian to try. To everyone's shock, Brian makes the shot on his first attempt. People assume it's beginner's luck, but Brian continues to sink shot after shot effortlessly. He wins the stuffed animal and gives it to Isabel, leaving Connor speechless. Back at school, Brian decides to test his newfound talent. He asks the coach to let him try out for the team, but the coach dismisses him, thinking it's a joke. Brian insists, and during the tryout, he shocks everyone by effortlessly outplaying Connor and the rest of the team. The coach immediately adds Brian to the roster, seeing him as their ticket to the championship. Brian's first game is a roaring success. His parents cheer from the stands as he leads the team to victory. But not everyone is happy. Connor refuses to pass the ball to Brian during the game, trying to overshadow him. However, the coach quickly puts a stop to Connor's antics, forcing him to play as a team. When Brian finally gets the ball, he dazzles the crowd with his incredible moves and scoring ability. Soon, Brian's meteoric rise catches the attention of talent scouts. The once mocked underdog is now the school's biggest star, admired by classmates who used to bully him, and his life changes completely. During this time, the media and sports programs were fixated on Kevin's shocking decline, speculating that his career might soon come to an end. His mother, believing the issue was psychological, went to the court to encourage him during training. However, the problem was far more complicated, leaving Kevin frustrated and confused about the sudden loss of his talent. Meanwhile, Brian was enjoying his new skills and spending time with his best friend Mitch. The two decided to attend a car race for fun, where Brian spotted Isabel. Hoping to impress her, he joined the race but became distracted by her presence and ended up losing. At the same time, Kevin was struggling on a professional level. While filming a commercial for a sports shoe brand, he failed repeatedly to perform his iconic moves. He stumbled for no reason and missed simple shots, leaving him embarrassed and angry. Frustrated, he stormed off the set after a heated argument with his manager, who accused him of being a failure. The public buzzed with talk of Kevin's fall from grace. Every news outlet seemed to focus on his sudden downfall. In contrast, Brian's name was rising as a new star. People in his town were captivated by his talent, wondering how someone who couldn't make a single basket during a halftime contest had become so skilled. Did he steal Kevin's talents? These rumors gave Kevin's manager an idea. Determined to uncover the truth, he began studying footage of Brian's games, comparing his moves to Kevin's. To his astonishment, Brian was flawlessly executing Kevin's signature moves, techniques no one else could replicate. Convinced that Brian had somehow stolen Kevin's talent, the manager set out to confirm his suspicions. The manager attended one of Brian's matches and watched closely as Brian performed a move famously associated with Kevin. This solidified his belief. The manager approached Kevin and revealed his findings, insisting that Brian had taken his talent and that they needed to find a way to get it back. At first, Kevin dismissed the idea, thinking it was far-fetched. But as he watched more evidence, he began to believe it was possible. The manager decided to confront Brian, but he approached cautiously, pretending to scout him for a potential team or offer. Brian, unaware of the true motive, assumed the manager was there to support his growing career. The next day, Kevin and his manager visited Brian's school under the guise of participating in a charity program for underprivileged kids. Brian was shocked to see them, but Kevin's manager encouraged him to stay close and observe Brian during their time there. In the classroom, students were thrilled to see Kevin. The manager worked to position Kevin near Brian, hoping to trigger something that might reveal the transfer had occurred. However, the plan failed to produce results. In a last effort, Kevin and Brian trained together, hoping that playing side by side might restore Kevin's abilities. Despite their attempts, this too failed. Frustrated and disheartened, Kevin stormed off, feeling no closer to reclaiming his lost talent. In Brian's next game, he shone as the undeniable star, with the crowd chanting his name. Even Connor, his former bully, was overshadowed and sidelined. However, Kevin's manager soon confronted Brian, accusing him of stealing Kevin's talent and warning that Kevin's career was crumbling, with contracts and his reputation on the line. Brian dismissed the accusation, unwilling to let go of his newfound success. But during a pivotal game, as fans celebrated his brilliance, Brian began to reflect on the truth. After the victory, he sat alone, realizing he couldn't justify building his achievements on someone else's misfortune. Determined to set things right, Brian reached out to Kevin and his manager, meeting them at Kevin's training facility. Watching Kevin struggle with basic basketball skills filled Brian with guilt. At the manager's insistence, Brian performed one of Kevin's signature moves flawlessly, confirming their suspicions. Together, they attempted to recreate the talent transfer by mimicking the original conditions, but nothing worked. Kevin left the court dejected, feeling his career and identity were lost. That night, while reviewing game footage, Brian noticed the ball striking the team mascot and realized this was the key to the transfer. During Kevin's next game, Brian rushed to the stadium at halftime. Dodging security, he met Kevin near the court entrance. Using the same ball Kevin had gifted him, Brian struck the team mascot and grabbed the ball with Kevin, repeating the words from before. A surge of electricity flowed between them, restoring Kevin's talent. Kevin returned to the court and delivered an extraordinary second-half performance, leading his team to victory. Meanwhile, Brian went home relieved, knowing he had made the right choice. The next morning, headlines celebrated Kevin's incredible comeback. Brian, proud of his decision, realized true success isn't about shortcuts but hard work and perseverance. Committed to improving himself, he began training tirelessly to develop his own skills. Brian repaired his friendship with Mitch and reconnected with Isabel, who admired his genuine nature and valued him for who he truly was. With relentless practice, Brian became a key player for his school's basketball team. Despite initial doubts, he played in the championship game at his coach's insistence, helping his team reach victory. In the final moments, with the game hanging by a thread, Brian took a decisive free throw. The arena fell silent as he released the ball. To everyone's delight, it swished through the hoop, securing the championship. From that day forward, Brian trained alongside Kevin, honing his skills and creating a style of his own. The movie closes with a powerful message. True success comes from effort and perseverance, and the joy of accomplishment is greatest when you've earned it. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and support us. See you next time.